so they were like, "Are you still taking your pain medicine?" And I was like, "Actually, I got my, took my last one like 2 days ago." So they're like, "You're dope sick." And I was like, "What is that?"
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Breaking Down Addiction, a podcast brought to you by National Addiction Specialists. I will be your host today, Johnny Phillip, and I'm joined with co-host Chad Elkin. And our guest today is Misty Pearson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've been friends for a while now, and we haven't caught up in quite some time.
It's been a minute.
Thank you for joining us from Knoxville. So happy to hear that you're here.
Thank you.
I like to start off all these episodes with the same question. And if you can talk to yourself in active addiction, what would you say to yourself?
For me, I would say show myself some grace. I know in my active addiction and still today, I'm very hard on myself, and not to be prideful, to be able to swallow my pride and ask for help. During my addiction, the pride was like my downfall. I wouldn't ask for help, and I think had I asked for help, it wouldn't have, transpired the way it did. So,
yeah, I agree with that. I was at a conference recently, and somebody was talking, and they said, I didn't get through this by myself. I got through this with the help of multiple other people, multiple doctors, multiple counselors, et cetera. And so I think there are so many people out there that you're right in addiction, active addiction, who, think that they have to do it themselves, But one thing I disagree with AA is that you have to want it bad enough, and in reality, I think just seeking out help, to get other people to help you out versus like you don't have to do everything yourself.
right.
I think we could all give ourselves a little grace.
Absolutely.
Sober or
Absolutely.
not, yeah.
I think for me too, like one of the reasons besides my pride that I didn't ask for help was just that guilt and shame, because good raising, as they say, from both my parents, and so that was very heavy on me, was that guilt and shame, just messing up. So
I think a lot of people are scared to get sober or step away from their drug of choice because of that very reason. Our behaviors that we're exuding while using, we're afraid to let all of that go. I don't know why, but that's just the psychology of it. It's really scary and fear-driven, and I think fear is a big part of that too. And we've talked about that a lot in every episode. But your history, you did not have active addiction for your early part of your life until you had this big change, this ACL injury.
correct.
And then what was that like after the ACL injury, and how did it happen? And then kind of walk us through how the usage started after that.
Well, for me, like I said, I grew up in little town, good family life, parents divorced, but still like co-parented great. Did like what society tells you you're supposed to do: graduate high school, go to college, get married, buy a house, have a baby. So when I was 30, I decided I was going to go try snow skiing for the first time. So it wasn't like I was an avid snow skier.
First time ever.
Yeah,
At
first
30
time
years
ever
old.
at 30. Yes, of course, I drank a little bit throughout my life, but alcoholism runs in my family, so I always had been very careful about having anything to drink. So went up there to North Carolina. It was law enforcement weekend, which it's kind of ironic. So I went up there I grew up around, both my parents are law enforcement affiliated, so I grew up around cops, felt very comfortable around them at this point in time in my life. And so went up there, brought my daughter with me, and I was on the bunny slope, so I wasn't even on a slope. And they were trying to teach me how to stop. And it
Doing
just...
the pizza.
I was trying to do the pizza, yes. Yeah. And pizza didn't work out for me. So tore my ACL. There where I was at, they have like emergent care hospital. So they had put me on, I think it was Ativan. And so I like literally the first week or so, like I don't really remember. It just kind of had me loopy. And then I was still married. So my husband like went to the pharmacy and figured out the Ativan doesn't work for me. And my addiction really started though, like during this time, because it was before the opioid epidemic really hit. So that's when they were just still kind of handing out scripts, thinking that this is, OxyContin is not addictive. So I didn't even realize I was addicted to it. And then I had someone at my house had came over, and I was just kind of complaining about, like, I don't feel good, and I'm achy, I've vomiting, and so they were like, "Are you still taking your pain medicine?" And I was like, "Actually, I got my took my last one like 2 days ago." So they're like, "You're dope sick," and I was like, "What is that?" Like, I'd never had been around any drugs in my life, so I was very naive. Like, when I think back on it now, I'm like, I don't know how I could be that naive about stuff, but I had just kind of lived in my little bubble. I grew up in a really nice town, so and I was just in my little family bubble.
It's completely understandable.
Yeah.
You didn't know anything about it. You didn't use drugs up to that point.
So you got an OxyContin prescription for the ACL injury, and how long was that prescription for? And at what point do you feel like that turned into something else, or turned into a substance use disorder or addiction?
I want to think it like that happened in February, and so I had to do like physical therapy for a while, and then the surgery. So I would say close to 4 to 5 months that I was getting the prescription.
Okay.
Through all the physical therapy and the surgery, and then of course after surgery you go back and do more physical therapy. And so I didn't even realize at that point I had an addiction, even when somebody's like, "You're dope sick." And I no longer was able to get the prescription, so that's when I went out, and that particular person went and got another Oxy, and I didn't realize then that you could buy those off the street. So that was like the first time I was like, oh, okay. So
Well, I think there's a difference between, people take medications and controlled medications, and your body becomes dependent on it, where if you stop it, your body has withdrawal symptoms from it. But, I think with with a substance use disorder, how does it affect your life negatively? So people can take lots of medications, and they might not have an addiction to it, even though their body is dependent on it, right? And so, like, what signs or symptoms did you have where it started having an impact on your life that, okay, this is maybe impacting my work or my relationships, my home environment, those types of things?
for me, I would say probably like 6 to 7 months in after I'd been taking it. I was going through a divorce too. It was a very cordial divorce though. So, but it was kind of like the perfect storm. I was going to divorce. I moved to a new place. Every other weekend, my ex-husband was getting my daughter. So, basically, it made me feel kind of numb, and I, for whatever reason, I liked that feeling. I liked the high, and so I just in my head, this sounds so crazy, but I justified it. Was like, I've never done anything wrong. Like, I've always done exactly what's expected of me. So I can just loosen up for a little while. Was kind of my crazy rational thinking. So.
And you're also going through some stressors in your life with the divorce. Do you feel like you're self-medicating to some extent?
I think so. I think I had at that point, because I had went from living at home with my parents to living with my husband, so I'd never lived by myself. So that was a big change for me. The time I didn't realize it, but looking back, and then the fact that my daughter was gone like every other weekend. So and then just meeting the wrong people.
Yeah.
To be honest, played a big role. People that I met, I trusted everybody. The only men that I'd really had in my life at that point was my dad, my ex-husband, and my grandfather, and all three are just great men that I had my best interests at heart. So I thought all men had my best interests at heart, which is crazy to think about that now, but back then, like, that's what I thought. So, being around the wrong people led me to just continue to use, and then I went from taking them orally to snorting them. So, and that was a big game changer for me.
And I want to rewind just a little bit here too, because so you're getting the prescription because of the injury, after the surgery, is there a time that you don't have any and you start getting them on the street? Or
It was after I had finished my last prescription of it, when the person had been in my house and basically said, "You're dope sick," and he was just like, "I can go get you one, and you'll feel better." And so like instant, he went and got it, and then when I took it, it was just almost like instantly, I felt better. So,
and what led to taking it orally to snorting? Better, like, was it you were getting higher quicker or feeling better quicker, or was it a different high?
A different high and quicker was the big thing. Again, I started hanging with the wrong folks at that point in time, so it was just like I said, it just kind of a big snowball effect, and I didn't even realize what was happening. It's like after like 6 months, I could look back and just see this huge wake of destruction that my life had just messed mine up and affected so many others. But yeah, it was definitely my surroundings, who I had in my life at that time, and just not wanting to feel and liking that high.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 3 girls now, and I tell them that, I understand that too, that the people that you're around, you become like, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like, who are your 5 people that you hang out with? And more likely than not, you're going to become like those 5 people. So it's like, choose your 5 people that you hang out with a lot very carefully. And then as a parent, obviously, you can have some influence there too. So to make sure that your kids don't get around the wrong people and learn bad habits.
Yeah.
Learn good habits, not bad habits.
For sure. And my dad's always said, "You are who you hang around." So, boy, he was right. So,
as was mine.
Yeah.
So your addiction escalated quickly.
Very quickly.
At this point.
Mm-hmm.
It led to 2 arrests within a year, I believe.
So I ended up, let's say that injury was in February. So by January of that following year, arrested. And so I stole from my mom. That was the only one I was brave enough to do it to. And so my mom, tough love, pressed charges. She feels terrible about it today, but I feel like it, and saved my life, or I wouldn't be sitting here today. Scared me, but it didn't scare me enough to where I stopped. So I kept on and ended up didn't get arrested again for a couple of years, and then that's when I got arrested. Then is when I was incarcerated for quite a while. So, and that was a big game changer for me. One, I didn't have a choice. I was sober, no detox in jail. So,
well, how long was that period to you in jail?
Total 9.5.
Okay, so 9.5 months.
Years.
9.5 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And you could have had drugs behind the wall, correct?
Correct.
You could have gotten high, and you didn't make that an option.
No, I saw more drugs in there than I ever did out on the street. For me, it took me a few years to get my mindset right, because once you quit using, you can still have those addictive behaviors. And so it took me a while to get my head right. I never used once I got arrested because I was like, that's what got me here. And that wasn't anything I was used to. Nobody in my family had went to jail. So it was completely just culture shock for me. And, but yeah, I decided at one point, I guess during my incarceration, I had called home. This was just a big pivotal moment for me in there is I called home, and you never knew, when you called home, what they were going to say. Had somebody passed away, had somebody, and that's when my mom had told me that my daughter had started having seizures. So for me, I got very angry at self and just was just like, I can leave here bitter, or I can leave here better. And so I'm going to leave here better. And so from that point is I did everything that I could to make myself a better person than when I went in there. So.
And we've talked about your daughter at length over the years, and you said that she's been a lot better.
Oh, absolutely.
In recent years.
Yes.
Which that's amazing. And I had no idea it was 9.5 years.
Yeah.
That you were
And I tell my story, but for the longest time I wouldn't tell my story just because of like that fear of rejection or fear of abandonment or like, the guilt and shame. Like the guilt and shame I still do struggle with. Like not every day, but more often than probably I should at this point. But so somebody had told me a couple of years ago, like, tell your story, like tell it, if it helps one person, and gives them hope. So I've like recently in the last year or two, like really like started going to like, like churches like Celebrate Recovery and going and speaking. And I came down here and spoke for a Tennessee Department of Correction, like facility. It's a company that's kind of an off brand of them, and went down there and like talked to all them. I guess it's been about a year and a half ago. So that was a big deal.
That's huge to give back like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a huge motivating factor a lot of times for people does come down to their kids. I feel like I've seen that multiple times where sometimes Department of Children's Services will get involved, and somebody might, have their kids taken away from them because of their substance use disorder, or have the threat of that, et cetera. And sometimes that motivates people to seek help. Tell us what were the most. I'm just curious. What were the most common drugs that you saw while you were incarcerated?
It fluctuated over the years. Initially, you would see like tobacco, and then maybe crazy enough like marijuana, and then as it progressed, you would see a lot of Suboxone would be there, and then meth, and then eventually heroin or fentanyl. So there was a few that overdosed.
How would people usually get it? I guess they just have family members or friends transport it in?
They can, or guards.
Guards, okay.
What an interesting system.
Yeah, it's insane.
We all hear stories, but just thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes it more of a reality where, yes, somebody coming off of drugs and they do get busted, they can end up in prison or jail, and they can easily just have as much bad behavior going on in there than out in the real world.
Or you have somebody that might be in there that has never used. They could be in there for, a lot of different things, and then become addicted in there.
Do they ever do drug screens in there?
They do.
Yeah. Just for like suspicion or?
Yeah, just randomly, or like sometimes they would come in and just test like the whole pod.
Yeah.
So the whole group of women, they would test them, and then if somebody, failed a drug screen, then they would get write-ups, and then the write-ups, of course, have consequences. They can't have visitation and things like that. So a lot of risk. None that I was willing to take.
Wow.
So.
And then, what was your life like as far as rebuilding your life after you got out, like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, et cetera?
Well, for me, it started before I ever got out. I was able to work on a master's I'm like halfway through a master's degree. I was able to get my CPRS while I was in there.
That's great.
Good on you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was one of those like. To me, it's just a God thing. Like, just these opportunities popped up, and I was like, I'm going to take them. That way, even though I have a college degree, I don't know, because I'm going to leave here with a background. I don't know how that's going to play out, where I'm going to end up getting a job. So I was like, let me just get all these tools in my belt, so when I do get out, I'll be as prepared as I can be. So I did Suicide Watch, like helped the guards do that, like ladies that were on Suicide Watch. I do that. I worked full time when I was in there too, at a call center, which is,
oh my God.
Yeah, I worked like 40 plus hours a week. So developed some kind of structure and consistency. And so before I ever got out, it's my Gigi. She came to see me, and she had sat beside somebody at a networking event. She worked at a bank, and she was like, I told this guy your story. I hope you don't mind. And I was like, he didn't know me. He couldn't see me. I was like, oh, I don't mind, And so he ended up he worked for a treatment center. And so he was like, when is she getting out? She's like, well, we don't know. It's we're not sure yet. And so he's like, can she get me a resume? So I was able to type one up, but I had to, mail it because obviously I couldn't email or anything. And so he had my resume, and he told her as soon as she gets out, have her call me. So as luck would have it, about 9 months later, I was able to get out. I got out, I think it was on a Monday, called him Tuesday morning, went Thursday for an interview, and then started in less than 2 weeks after I got home. So no car at this point. My mom was having to drive me to work, and then I ended up getting an apartment. Again, my Gigi was talking to somebody else about me, and he had a rental property, and it ended up being right next to the facility I worked for. Like, literally, I could throw a rock and hit it. So
thank God for Gigi here.
Yeah. I had such a good support system with my mom, my dad, my daughter, my sister, my Gigi, just blessed. And I feel like that's not to go down a rabbit hole, but I feel like that's been a huge part of my success, is having a good support system, where so many people that come out of this system like that, they don't have that.
Exactly.
And that made a huge difference for me. So, so I ended up, my mom helped me get my first car when I got out. I had a place to live, I had a job, and so everything was just kind of lining up. My daughter ended up moving with me into my apartment, so that was fun, and it's not so fun for her some days, though.
The pieces just start clicking.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, it was just like a God thing, and because I'd had to go up for parole a couple of different times, and I would get, first few times I was like, I'd get mad, but after that I was just like, I know that, God's got a reason for keeping me in here. And somebody had told me, you might be doing everything right in here, bettering yourself, but He's lining stuff up for you out there, so just be patient. So I know all this stuff wouldn't have lined up. So I started working there, and I worked there 5 months, and they called me in the office, and I was like, oh God, they're going to fire me. I mean, they knew my background. I was very honest about it, but they were creating this new role and asked me what I wanted, and I didn't know everything it entailed. So I was like, well, I've got to, let me think about it, pray about it, and I took it. And once I took it, they're like, well, hey, you can work from home. My daughter was having some health issues then, so I was able to be at home with her in the mornings. Got my own laptop, a work phone, so and that's kind of how I got into the role I am now, is that role there, and it just kind of led, to where I'm at. So
and it transitioned into business development.
It did,
from there.
yeah, because I did admissions, and then I was a care coordinator. So you would call me instead of calling into admissions, and you would give me the client's information, and I would take it from inception until they admitted. And so I got to know all the referral sources. And then we had one of our reps that relapsed, and so they handed me her phone. So I had my personal phone, my work phone, and her work phone. And so I did that for about a year and a half once she was gone. And then they're like, well, you're doing BD. Do you just want to, get paid for it? And I was like, well, sure. But, and of course he told me, he's like, business development's not easy. It's numbers driven, and a lot of times. So
A lot of
he was
hustle.
like, yeah. And he's like, so if that's not something you want to do, and I was like, I got to think about that too, because that was, and it was just all very surreal to me, because I would think back, this is where I was, 5 years ago, having to get in line to get some ice, to where now, I'm able to give back and help people. And that's just my biggest motivation, is to give back and to show other people, if this gal can do it, then anybody can do it. So,
See, one of the things that I see happens with a lot of our patients is that they get into recovery, but at some point they get a felony for intent to distribute or whatever, and maybe they had a good job previously, and after that, it's harder to get another job, And so, to me, from an advocacy standpoint, I think it's important to, get the felony, downgraded to a misdemeanor or get it wiped, because a lot of patients, a lot of people that do, go through these situations end up being incarcerated yours is definitely the best case scenario. You bettered yourself while you were incarcerated, et cetera, and you get more degrees and you had a good support system. But a lot of people don't have those options or as good of a support system, and maybe they were making $30 or $40 an hour doing something previously, and then they get the felony on the record, and it's harder for them to get a job now. What are your thoughts on that? Did you see that happen with anybody? Well, because that's something that's kind of near and dear to me as far as like our, people I know is taking away somebody's ability to support their family is a really big deal, and so I think legislators, anybody that deals with advocacy, that should be a focus going forward on, if somebody has been following these steps or they've been in recovery for X number of years, trying to wipe their record so that doesn't follow them around and affect their job opportunities.
Yeah, I agree 110%. I actually was having a conversation with somebody last night about that. Like, I feel like there are some people that are going to go in and out of the system all the time, but there are some of us that are going to do exactly what we're supposed to do, that we have felonies, that we are inhibited in a lot of ways. We can't vote, and as like a single woman, I can't have any weapon to protect my home, things like that. And I don't know what it would look like, but I think we do need something like some kind of system. If somebody's been clean X number of years, if they were on probation, parole, they did that to the T, and they're giving back to society, not getting in any trouble. I think that we definitely need something like that.
Yeah, if it wasn't like a violent cause, if it was a drug-related offense that led to the felony, I really do feel like there needs to be a way to end up getting that expunged or downgraded, so it doesn't affect them.
I think you can get certain ones expunged, but it's expensive. Mm-hmm. That you have to pay, I think, so much per felony. I'm not sure what it is, but so a lot of people
like attorney fees,
and then the actual expungement. They charge for that. To my understanding, I could be wrong. That could have changed, but
doesn't seem right to me.
It doesn't. It doesn't seem right.
It's a money game.
It's a money game, exactly. So if you've got somebody that was making good money that now has a felony that isn't making that much money, then they're not going to have the money to get that expunged.
And it's following them around, affecting their lives. And it sounds like, are these charges still affecting you to a certain degree?
Absolutely. And that's what I tell anybody, that God willing, I make it to March 1st, I'll have 16 years of sobriety, and I still have consequences for my actions, today. And maybe not as severe as they were back then, right. But, the impact that all this had on my family. So there was a time where, my daughter was sitting there on the couch, we're watching TV, nothing was said. She gets up, I don't think anything about it. And a little while later I go and, look, she's not in her room, so I open the porch door, and she's like, I just don't even want to talk to you right now. So something triggered her, so like there's still things like that, or I'm
terribly sorry, though.
Well, it's my own doing, I'm sorry for my family and like the pain that I caused them. And like I had to have surgery last December, and my family, I'd not had opiates in my body since, 2010. So like my mom, my dad, like they're concerned about it, because it was one of those surgeries I was going to have to, and it killed me that they worried about that. So, things like that. There was one year, the year just started off terrible. My grandmother died. My dad had a heart attack. I changed jobs. It was just everything like in a 6-week time frame. And so some months later, I was driving down the road with my mom, and I was like, we were talking about how crappy the year started, and I was like, not one time did I ever think, I didn't think about getting high, like not one. And she was like, and I just looked, I was like, you still worry about that? And she's like, every single day.
So the stigma is still there.
Definitely.
And, I'm basically terribly sorry just for the surrounding circumstances with your daughter. And I know that that's a complicated relationship, right? And
Yeah.
me having a daughter just makes me think of you and your relationship with yours. But you've had all of these amazing opportunities set aside from the stigma and some of these charges following you around. And you've had an easier career job-wise than most.
Beyond
but-
blessed, yes.
which is amazing. But then you've had the RX Summit. You were a Hope Ambassador. And I believe it was this year, right?
Yes, and
Earlier
or
this
actually
year.
they're doing it a little different. So typically this coming one, they would have had new ones, but they kind of kept us on for another year. So when we go back in April, I believe it
Beautiful.
is, they're going to announce like who the new ones are. So on that, they
Tell
have
us more about that, because I think some of our listeners probably don't know what that means. Like, what is a Hope Ambassador?
I didn't know what it was either initially. So
It's a cool title.
It is. It is. It is. So Hope Ambassador, what they do is they represent basically like hope, like somebody that's came through recovery and try to share stories and to give people hope. So they had a booth set up like where like all the vendors were. That was just for the Hope Ambassador. So like we could stand there and people come by like tell our stories. Like this is why I am a Hope Ambassador. This is what I'm here for. It was fun, and the biggest moment for me, and I wish I had a picture. I can show y'all a picture afterwards. But I was walking in by myself, walking in to go to one of the big groups, and I noticed there was like these big things pop. And I wasn't really paying attention. But when I looked up, I noticed there was like a picture of somebody's face. Again, I just kept walking by, and then I got to about the third one, and it was my face.
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh!" And they'd ask you like for a quote, and so I months ago I'd give them this quote or whatever. But I mean, these things were probably like 8 foot tall.
How was the photo?
Photo was good. Like they had to send a photo in, yeah, because I'm not going to send a bad photo.
Yeah. But with it blown up like that,
Yeah,
it's a little scary.
And so I just hit my knees. Like I cried because I like wasn't expecting that. And the lady that had it done, she's like, I wanted to surprise you all. So on the flip side of it was somebody else's face. So I asked the lady, I said, can I have it? And she said, well, who's on the flip side? And so I found him. I was like, do you want that? He's like, I got to fly back to Colorado. He's like, so you can have it. So I'm like,
bringing that on the airplane with him.
So he was like, take it. So it barely fit in my car. I'd like put my seats down and everything. And so like it's in my bedroom. Like I've got it like back behind like a full length mirror. So like you just see my face. But I was like, how could I not take that? Like that was a big deal for me
cool.
to, and that was just very humbling and just let me know like I'm on the right track. Like I just need to keep doing what I'm doing because, in this industry, it's so easy to get burnt out. It's easy to, sometimes I feel like people forget like this is why we're doing what we're doing. So it just, it was one of those like just full circle moments. And I was emotional. I called my whole family and I was like, look at this. And, my family, they got emotional and, and it was like, one of those at one point in my life, I thought my family will never say like, I'm proud of you. So like, even I try not to get teary eyed, but like, even if like when I hear my dad say it or my daughter or my mom, like I get teary eyed every time because I'm just grateful for that. Mm-hmm. Like with my daughter and I on our relationship, we have a really good one. I feel like had I not went through what I went through, I would have been one of those you do as I say, not as I do type mamas. But now, like, we're able to have conversations. We're able to have those difficult conversations. We get along 95% of the time, but,
Best case scenario.
Yeah, but she's a little mini me, so sometimes we butt
How
heads.
old's your daughter?
She's 25.
Okay.
I'm just 29, but yeah, she's 25. She'll be 26 in February. So, even her as an adult, it still affects her. I mean, she was very young when that happened, but, I mean, her mom wasn't there physically. I was blessed with my ex-husband never once tried to like take her away from me. He made sure that I got to see her. I got to talk to her, and so grateful for that. Him and my mom made sure that, she got to come visit. And
He realized that
Yeah.
she's going to need her mama.
yeah. And he said, and I told him, I said, I put you in a position where you had to be mom and dad for a while. And he's like, and I was terrible at the mama part. He said, I tried, but so, having that kind of support just made all the difference in the world. So, her and I, like, we're able to talk and, about pretty much everything. Where, like, when I was growing up, there was just so much stuff you didn't talk about with your parents. And so I like the fact that we can talk about, the good stuff and the hard stuff and the bad stuff. And
I think it's super important to talk to your kids about everything. And in schools, I don't feel like they teach kids about the dangers of the various substances out there right now. And I'll give an example, but my daughter went to homecoming. She's in ninth grade. My daughter went to homecoming, and at the homecoming after party at somebody's house, there's a 14-year-old girl who was passed out in the corner, and she was just passed out from alcohol. And there's 500 kids, whatever the number is, at this house after party, and nobody contacted anybody for help, because they were all scared. They were scared they were going to get in trouble, and so within Tennessee there's drug Samaritan, alcohol Samaritan laws where if something is terrible going on with somebody, and you call 911, you're not going to get into trouble, whether it's drugs or alcohol, which is great. But kids also don't. I tell my daughters that they don't understand how much fentanyl is out there too, and that the cartels make pills that look identical to Xanax. They make a pill that are fentanyl. They make they make pills that are identical to Adderall. And so you've got kids like at Duke and Harvard and all, these great schools at Vanderbilt, and they're at a party, and one of their friends is like, "Hey, you want an Adderall? You want a Xanax?" And they end up dying. Why did they die? Because it was fentanyl. It wasn't Adderall or Xanax. And so not only are some of the pills just completely fentanyl, but a lot of them are laced too. And so obviously if your body's has not built up a tolerance to opioids, a very small amount can kill you. And so I tell my kids that everything's fentanyl until proven otherwise.
Yes, as you should. And they've even started putting in marijuana.
Yeah, exactly. They lace marijuana with fentanyl, which is wild. And I don't think anybody thinks they're gonna do cannabis, marijuana, or something else, kratom, or Xanax, or Adderall, or whatever. They don't think they're going to die from that, and that's one of the reasons the overdoses are so high, is because it's just so the Mexican cartels have so much fentanyl available. The supply is just there that and it gives them a bigger high, that it creates repeat business, but at the same time leads to increased mortality.
Thankfully, fentanyl wasn't really around during your usage. I think it'd be a totally different story.
Absolutely.
Glad you're with us.
Me too. Very blessed. Yeah. And when I was using it, there wasn't even really a lot of heroin around. It was, so like when I was using, I knew if I was getting an Oxycontin, or I was getting a Roxy, or I was getting morphine, like you knew what you were getting. Where today, like you said, like they've got pills that look just like it, and it's nothing but fentanyl.
Yeah,
So
you look at pictures between like an Oxycontin and a cartel fentanyl pill that they created out of fentanyl that looks identical to Oxycontin. You look at the picture, you cannot tell the difference. I mean, they've gotten pretty good at it.
Well, side question. Go ahead, Jed.
Yeah, I was just gonna say for people that are still caught in addiction, or families who have lost hope, what do you want them to know based on your journey? Is there something, if a family has a son or a daughter or a sister, and they've relapsed, or they're currently in active addiction, what would you tell them?
I think the first thing, tell them is like, I understand. I've been there. Our journey's different, but we've felt those same feelings. and share a little bit of my story, not a whole lot because it's not about me, but just to, say like I've been there, and just let them know that, it's okay to ask for help. Again, for me, that was a big thing, the pride, and then the guilt and shame. And just, let them know that there is hope and that there is a better way to live, and help them get treatment, whether it's with the facility I work at or wherever. Because it's people's lives on the line. So I want them to get help wherever is best for them. So, but I think just a lot of times just listening and let them be heard of what they're going through, what they're feeling, and hey, this is why I keep doing this, and being able to relate like that, I think makes a big difference. And just sometimes you've got to hold their hand till they can walk in through that door to treatment, and then just pray that something takes hold, and when they do leave treatment, that they're able to like get that support they need. And I know fortunately there's more and more places that are coming up that are offering that support. Not enough, but it's getting there. And I think that's key, is like those people that don't have that support, find a place that can offer that, because family doesn't always have to be blood, right? Because a lot of their families are probably, it's not good for them to go back to that family. So being able to find a family that can, like whether it's NA, AA, Celebrate Recovery, whatever that looks like for them, everybody's recovery is different. So whatever it takes for them to stay sober.
Yeah, I found that people that are actively involved in AA or NA, those wraparound services create such a good friend group, a positive friend group that creates that support network to kind of help them, prevent relapse, keep them in recovery.
Agree.
Going forward. And you were talking about the shame and guilt, and I just want the listeners to know too that when you're going through that, it's addiction is a brain disease, a chronic brain disease, and you're just really sick, while you're doing all that, right? And so it's not something to feel guilt or shame about. It's just to understand that you're really sick and you need help. So, I think people need to understand that and not feel that guilt or that shame. They just need to seek out help, because over time, just like any chronic brain disease, they can get better. And with a good support network, they can release that burden and share that burden with other people.
Mm-hmm. And I think one other thing too, just to add on to that, is one of the things I do tell people: it doesn't matter like how much clean time somebody has. I still need a sponsor. You still need to work the steps. You still need to go to meetings, because I know at one point in my life, I was working at a treatment center, and I was just like, I don't need to go to meetings. I don't need a sponsor. I'm working in treatment. I'm helping people, and that was when that rep had a lot of clean time and she relapsed, and it scared me to death, because because she had what appeared all her ducks in a row. So at that point I was like, what, it doesn't matter how much clean time I've got. I still need to make sure that I'm, have a sponsor that can call me on my crap, that's not going to placate me and just let me say whatever, but will call me on my crap if I've got that stinking thinking. And I can still have the stinking thinking. And so
you just got to talk about it.
Got to talk about it. And that's the big thing. Like I know for me now, like I battle with depression sometimes, definitely anxiety, but depression kind of creeps in, and I'll tell my family now, hey, I'm struggling. I'm depressed. I'm letting y'all know that, where before I would never have said that. And that way they're just kind of alert and, and aware of it. And well, a lot of times, my mom will be like, hey, can you come help me unload my groceries or something, just to kind of get me out of the house and not isolate, which is not good for me or any addict to do. So
Yeah. I mean, I listened to a lecture and read a recent study about people that say in the United States, people that say, they did a study on people that say they're in recovery, what percentage of those people have used a substance, in the last 30 days, and it was like close to, it was around 50%, which kind of blew my mind. I didn't realize it could be that high. And so going back to your point, from my standpoint as an addiction medicine physician, I tell people, it's not one thing that's going to help. It's as many touches as possible. So whether that means, talking to your doctor, getting your medications that help out with your substance use disorder from them, and also getting therapy from them, doing your counseling sessions, whether those are one-on-one or group, talking to a CPRS, certified peer recovery specialist, going to AA or NA, surrounding yourself with the right people, the right friend network. And sometimes it takes getting out of a city to be able to do that, because you have so many things, so much baggage in the location that you're at. So, I don't think it's one thing that works. I think it's the more touches you have, the better off you're going to be.
Agree.
Just last question, wrapping up here. So you work for Magnolia Ranch, Genesis Detox.
Correct.
Been to both, incredible places. Magnolia Ranch is very serene, and I love everything that you guys have going on there. Your clinical is great. I love Clint.
Yes, he's fabulous.
But what's driving your passion today? Because I know that probably changes and ebbs and flows over time. What drives your passion to help others today?
For me, it's just to give back and to, if I can help somebody not go through what I went through, but more importantly to me is not what I put my family through. It's what drives me to continue to do what I do. Magnolia makes it easy because we're smaller, and the clinical program is, we've got, I don't know how much like 30-bed facility, and we have 6 full-time therapists.
That's great.
Program director, clinical director. Program and clinical director don't have a caseload, so our therapists are going to have no more than 4 on their caseload. So they're getting 8 hours of programming and then 3 additional sessions a week individually and a family. So
that's fantastic.
That's I try to get people to come there, but again, if it's not the right fit for them, we'll send them where is best. But just being able to give them that chance, to take that first step and give them the hope. And I just know I put my family through a lot. And so I don't want any other families to have to go through that because it does have lifelong consequences. So just being able to continue to give back and reach out. And that's with this role we're in, we meet so many new people, it changes all the time. There's people that ebbs and flows in the industry, right? So, and so being able to connect with those people to get more resources to help more people is what it's about, and just trying to save lives and get them the help that they need.
I made this point yesterday in a meeting. However many resources I have right now, I need 500 more this year. That's just the matter of fact about it. And all programs keep growing and also changing. We got to keep up with the growth and that change. I'm just happy you're doing what you're doing. You're one of the best to do it.
Thank you.
And I look up to you a lot.
Oh,
I always
thank you.
have since meeting you. And thanks for being our guest today. Thanks for sharing your story. And is there anything else you want to leave with our listeners before closing up? Anything that you have on the horizon?
Well, so we're getting ready to open up another detox actually Monday, so up in Kentucky. So that's exciting. We're going to be able to serve and help more people up there. I know that area really needs more resources up there. So being able to do that, super exciting. And
you were saying Paducah?
Paducah, yeah, it's in Mayfield, so right outside of Paducah.
Okay.
So what is it, like 2.5 hours from here, I think. Mm-hmm. So that's super exciting. And other than that, I'm just trying to live my best life and be better than I was the day before.
That's what we can all ask for, too. But that's great, and congratulations on everything, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you.
And I think it'll, people, all the listeners can relate to a lot of the things that were said today.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And everybody check out Misty Pearson, and check out Magnolia Ranch, Genesis Detox. And if anybody that you know, or if you are struggling, please reach out to somebody for help. It's there. And just love you so much. Thanks for joining us.
Love you too. Thank you.
You're welcome.